Hi plant friends, welcome to Lethal. My name's Em. If you're obsessed with all things houseplants, you're in the right place. Here I share tips, ideas and inspiration for growing your indoor jungle. In today's video I'm sharing my wish list for 2025, the top 8 houseplants I'm dreaming of adding to my collection. From rare finds to must-haves, let's dive into some leafy goals for the new year. And guys, please also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and the bell button so that you never miss a video full of planty vibes. Let's get started. Okay, so the first one is the Philodendron Bapanatephydum, which is a mouthful to pronounce. I'm hoping that is the right pronunciation. It originates from South America, namely Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina and Paraguay. It's commonly known as the horsehead philodendron, lacy tree philodendron, or the philodendron hope. I'm sure it has many other common names. Now looking at it, it is an absolutely beautiful plant. What drew me to it originally is the large size, because what I do when I'm looking for a plant, a lot of the time I go to look at its maximum size. Occasionally you can't find pictures of the maximum size of the plant. Sometimes you can if you really dig deep and go on Instagram and use hashtags and other variables to search. You can find if you dig deep, but sometimes you just want to get a quick snapshot and you just go on Google and you don't find much information or see much pictures. But for this particular one, I was able to even see it in the wild, in the rainforest, and the leaves are massive. Once they mature, you're looking at 2 foot long on the maximum length on the leaves, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. In terms of the height, in native conditions, it will reach around 15 feet. But in an indoor environment, you're looking at, I believe, 6 foot maximum around. Being an epiphyte, I imagine to get the best out of this plant, to really get those large leaves, you're going to need to support it. Me personally, I'd go for the wooden plank. As you can see, my Monstera is on a wooden plank. My Borsigiana, which you probably can't see, which is just hiding behind this Kentia next to this Syngonium here, is on a plank as well, and they seem to really love it. So I'd get that on a plank, or if you prefer the moss pole, which isn't my choice, I imagine you're going to get those really big leaves. I'll put up a picture of the max size so you can see. I'll try and look for one in the wild specifically, and I'll show you one with it in the indoor environment as well, sort of medium sized growing, to give you an example. But yeah, for me, I really like this philodendron, and it's probably not one that's particularly trending or sought after. Maybe it is, I'm not sure, but yeah, I like this one. And I love philodendrons because they're quite easy to care for. I'm quite experienced with them, having my narrow escape, also known as the tiger tooth philodendron or the jungle boogie. I've had that for 3 years and no trouble in 3 years, no hassle, no pests. I've underwatered it sometimes and forgotten about it, and it hasn't cried. It's just pretty much stayed green all the way through. It has had some knocks and bumps, so philodendrons I find quite hardy. And for me, with my lifestyle, because I do work as well, I'm trying to minimize the maintenance I need to do for the plants that I do add to the collection. You can't see all of them now. You could probably see a few of them in the background here, but most of them are pretty easy to care for, not too finicky. So having this for me would be ideal. And like all philodendrons, it's bright in direct light. Also, And I imagine fertilizing once a month is going to keep this plant happy. So yeah, that's the Philodendron Bipanatifidum, I think that's right. And I did also read that it doesn't really like a high salt concentration in the soil, so I imagine the tap water is not going to be great for it, and fertilizers that have like a heavy build up sort of residue after a couple of months from settling in the soil, because some fertilizers can do that. I imagine this plant won't enjoy that and it might start crying. So for me personally, I feed all my plants rainwater anyway, but if you choose to do the tap water route, that's down to you. But I'd say with most plants, they're going to benefit more from the pure clean rainwater if you can access that. Whether you have the butt or you collect via some sort of containers out on the balcony or in the garden, it is the best way to water most plants, if not all. So yeah, in terms of pricing, I've seen this particular philodendron for around 30 to 90 pounds. I did see it at the lowest price for around 20 pounds, which came down from 26.99 on a well-known UK plant site. So yeah, that's number one, the Philodendron Bipanatifidum. I will let you guys know as well that this list of mine of the 8 plants, or 8 of them that are on the wish list that I would like to acquire in 2025, they're not in any particular order. This is just the order that my notes have fallen in. I'm going to try and keep it as quick, but at the same time as granular as possible, because I know, you know, our concentration spans ain't that great these days for watching really long videos. Although some people do like the really long form content, but you know, from what I'm seeing, you know, the half an hour mark is, you know, reasonable these days. Maybe 45 minutes max. So yeah, that's number one. And yeah, I know some of you may have it, or you know, may not want it. It might inspire you to get it, I don't know, but yeah, this is one on my list of many on the large ever-growing wish list I do have. Right, the second one now. As I said, guys, this is not in any particular order. So I picked up a satin pothos, also known as Scindapsus pothos, also known as Scindapsus pictus, sorry. Okay, I'll put up a picture of a Scindapsus pictus just so we can remind you guys what the satin pothos is looking like, which is also known as the Scindapsus genus, which is a trailing, climbing, vining plant. So I have one of those, but I really like the look of the Scindapsus pictus albo mayari. I think that's the right pronunciation. I will put it down on the screen, as you can see, for all of them anyway. So I really like the look of this. Now, a lot of you already have the Scindapsus pictus satin, or I think it's also known as the Exotica, which is the normal sort of standard one. So when I saw this, I was like, yeah, that's all me. That's lethal. So yeah, I've got my eye on that one, and that one originates from around 10 years ago. And the backstory to this cultivar is apparently it was spotted at a show in Manila, which is in Thailand, in around 2009. And then it was sort of created as a single node plant. And basically it was propagated from cuttings and then distributed into the market, I imagine around Indonesia. And I think it's only sort of popped up here in the last 2 years, and I've seen it really, really aggressively shown on social media in the last sort of 6 months, to the point where I've even been sent some price lists from suppliers overseas with it, and now I've added it to my list, and it's definitely one that I want after having the Scindapsus pictus exotica, also known as the satin pothos. And for me, it's that silvery leaf, sort of raised silver, because it is almost like 3D. It has like some texture to it. The silver, I'd say splash of paint almost, what it looks like on the exotica. So yeah, that grew on me anyway from having this plant, and I seem to have cared for it okay so far. I've had it for about 4 or 5 months, and I put it into my own soil mix, which was a chunky aroid mix, and it seems to be thriving. I've got it hanging on the silver birch branch, which you can see on my Instagram, and I think there's a picture of that on one of my shorts as well on this channel. So yeah, when I saw the variegated version, this Scindapsus pictus alba Mayari, I was like, yep, that's for me. I want that. So that one I definitely want to acquire next year. I do know that the Mayari stands for, well, came from the Philippine goddess of the moon, because if you look at this Scindapsus alba, it does show sort of reminiscence of the moon phases, which I can see when I'm flicking through pictures now. So it's quite unique. There's something about it, and it does really have that exotic rainforest vibe. And there's so many different variegated plants out there. I know there's a lot of trending monsteras and a lot of variegated Hoyas, but for me, this is something I definitely want. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you have this plant already? Is it a plant you'd add to your collection? Do you like it now you've seen it? Did you know about it already? That's what the comments box is for. Let's get talking about this Scindapsus pictus alba. So yeah, that is the second one. The only other information I have about it is the leaves, the shape of it, they call it all, I think it's called ovate cordiform, the leaf shape. So I think that is a shape that I like, which is similar to the epiprenum. I'm wondering if this is basically an epiprenum as well, but it's just been renamed and reclassified somewhere along the line somehow, because I know that does happen with a lot of genuses coming to read information. I need to stop saying as well. I actually put a note in front of me that says no I feel like David Beckham. If you remember David Beckham, he was synonymous with I wonder if I counted how many times I said it in this video. How shocking it would be. But let's finish off with this Scindapsus pictus alba. So the mature leaf length is around, I think, 13 centimeters, it looks like, and the width is around 7 centimeters, so quite big. I imagine to achieve those sizes, you're going to need to support it on a moss pole or a plank preferably. And I've seen it for, price-wise, cuttings on eBay for £55. I think that's a 1 leaf cutting. And on Etsy, I've seen 1 leaf rooted cuttings for 25. So I think there's going to be a variation in price, but I don't think this is available from a standard rare plant retailer online in the UK, unless I dig deeper, but from a quick browse, I didn't see any outlets stocking this particular variegated Scindapsus. So I believe for me to obtain this one, I'm gonna have to go down the Etsy route or import it potentially from overseas. But I'm definitely going to be acquiring this plant. I know that. You know when you know, right in your heart. And as I say, I've gotten so well with the Exotica, which is quite common, I'd say. I do see it a lot in people's collections on Instagram when I'm going through the feed. So I'd say it is a very, very good all-rounder to look after. I watered that one up there when it pretty much goes dry. It does dry out quite quickly because the mix that I make, my homemade one, it doesn't really hold on to water that long. I don't know if that's going to be a problem long term when roots do become big, because I've only just started making my own DIY mix in the last 4 months, if I'm honest. So I'm kind of testing it, but so far this Scindapsus is loving it. I'll just grab it quickly and then we'll move on to number 3. So here it is here. Don't know if you guys can see. Really healthy. It's producing loads of new shoots. So I reckon the variegated version would do really well here as well, and would look amazing. Because my variegated collection isn't that big. I think I have 2 variegated plants here. Mainly my pride and joy. Let's get her out. My Albobal Sigiana Monstera. Just got a new leaf coming as well. And the stem, I don't think you can see, that's the new leaf. I don't know if you can see, but the stem is very, very variegated. Very stripy. But yeah, this is the main variegated plant that I have. And for me, I prefer the white variegation, the Albo, over the Aurea. It's only recently I learned differences in variegation terminology. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it as well, so when you have the word Aurea or Aureum, it normally refers to a yellow variegation. And when you see Albo, it's normally going to be referring to a white variegation, which, if you really look at the word Albo, you can see it is derived from the word albino. So that's number 2, Scindapsus pictus albo Maori, or Scindapsus pictus variegated, whatever you want to refer to it. I do know it is called different things online, and that's my number 2. So that brings us to number 3, which is, now number 3 is a genus that some of you may have heard of, some of you might have. It's not one that I commonly see on social media if I sort of go through my generic Instagram feed. But it's from the genus of Piper, and the genus Piper name comes from, I think, the Greek Latin word pepper. So the Piper genus is basically the pepper genus, where specifically the black pepper comes from, which is a prized spice in pretty much probably 80% of our households worldwide. For an example, you can't have a seasoned dish without black pepper. So I'm sure many of you know black pepper. But yeah, the particular species of the Piper genus that I'm after, which brings us to number 3 on the list, is the Piper ornatum, or ornatum. I'm not sure on the pronunciation. It's also known as the Piper majesticum. And some people refer to it, or some websites, as the Piper crocatum or crocatum, but I do believe the crocatum is a different species slightly. But for me, if I bring up a picture of the Piper ornatum, which I haven't seen widely available, funny enough. So hopefully some people start to become interested in this plant after watching this, if you haven't seen it. But if you can take a look at this beauty, which I do believe is a climbing vining plant, which originates from South America, specifically Peru, apparently. Now for me, it was the striking pattern on it, which did remind me, funny enough, of a calathea. And I did find, after reading in depth about this plant, which I didn't find too much information about, but when I did read deeply, I did see that apparently it is related to calathea, which did raise alarm bells for me, because I've had bad experiences recently with a couple of calatheas, namely the Calathea, I think it's Macayona, which is also known as the Calathea medallion. Now it has that really thin painted leaf, and that plant there, bearing in mind I have two other calatheas, which are the Calathea network, also known as Mosaica or Calathea mosaic. I'll put up a picture of that one, and I also have the rattlesnake, also known as the Geopersia lancifolia, I think. I'll double check that and put the name of it there and a picture. But those two I have, and they're fine in my normal room, which is in here, the bedroom. They're just over there on a shelving unit. I might see if I can stick a picture of the unit that they're on, where you can see a picture of that unit with the plants on it. Currently, there are some new ones on it, so I will do maybe an updated picture of the shelving unit in that corner of my bedroom. But you can see those on my Instagram, and I'll pop a little card with my Instagram handle on it, and you can see that unit. But yeah, as I was saying, those two calatheas are fine in here, but when I bought the Macayona in here, the medallion calathea, it didn't survive. So if this Piper ornatum, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to say ornatum, is similar, then I'm worried about having it. It might have that thin paper leaf vibe going on. But other than that, I did really like the look of this plant. I just thought it was different. And I've seen Pipers in the rainforest on a documentary, and they look amazing in the wild. And they are epiphytes, so they do grow up on trees. So I'd put this straight on a plank, straight away. And I can imagine this adding a real sort of mysterious, dark jungle vibe to any collection, and add that difference to a room, because it doesn't really remind me of much, if I'm honest. The shape does remind me similar of the Hederaceum, heartleaf philodendron, also known as the Scandens. But yeah, it's from the so the Piper, I also read, was from the Piperaceae family, which basically includes Peperomia. So this Piper ornatum is closely related to the same family of Peperomia, which was an interesting fact. And the petioles on this, which I think stood out as well, weren't green. So you get copper petioles and stems on this plant, which is quite unique. And if you really do look at it, it is quite similar to sort of the veination. If you look closely, it looks like a anthurium sort of vibe. But apparently these are not very drought tolerant, so if you do get one of these, you have to make sure it's well watered, but obviously not soggy, because it is a rainforest plant coming from South America, and none of the plants there really sit in water in the forest. especially if this is epiphytic, it's going to be growing on a tree, so there's no chance that the roots will ever be submerged in water, on most aroids, to be honest. So price wise, I saw this for around £30, and it was only available on about 2 sites, and I think one of the sites, or both of them, it was out of stock. So I will do some more digging to see if I can easily acquire this plant. But yeah, it's one that I definitely want. I also wanted to show you another plant from that genus, which is called the Piper Batman, which you cannot get anywhere on an online site. So I would have to import this one, but I'll just put a quick picture of it because I thought I'll show you guys as well, because it's such a cool looking plant. I don't know if it grows that tall in the wild. I didn't even find the maximum height for the ornatum, to be honest. I didn't really find much pictures of it looking huge, but I'm imagining you probably go to a couple of feet. But yeah, there's the Piper Batman as well for you. Picture, that's another one I want from the Piper genus too. But that was number 3, the Piper ornatum. So the next one, number 4. I know some people, when they see this one, they're gonna be like, oh, boring. And I know you've probably seen this one over and over again. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a clue. You can skip forward, but it begins with the letter A. Do you reckon you know what it is? I think you do already. It is an anthurium, yes. But what anthurium? I'll leave a little pause for you to try and guess. Can I get a little drum roll maybe? It is the Anthurium King of Spades. Let me get the picture up. So personally, and I know there's a lot of different anthuriums available, but for some reason, and there are quite a few that I'll have on the wish list, not a lot, because I'm not gonna go anthurium crazy, because I know a lot of people go anthurium crazy, and that is their thing, and that's all they collect. Some people just have a couple, some people have one. For me, there's a few that I want, but the one that I thought I'd talk about today on the list, out of the sort of wish list for 2025, is the Anthurium King of Spades, also known as the Anthurium HU, if you didn't know. And the reason that it is known also as the Anthurium HU is named after the breeder who created the variety of Anthurium, the King of Spades, being named Haji Uli, I think that's the pronunciation of the breeder, who is from, I believe, let me have a look. I think he's from Thailand. So the Anthurium King of Spades, also I forgot to add, the breeder of the Anthurium King of Spades, obviously it's a hybrid. He doesn't apparently use cell phones, he's quite an old school guy. I've seen a picture of him. I'll put up a quick picture of Haji Uli, the creator of Anthurium King of Spades, so you can see what he looks like. He looks quite humble and chilled out. So yeah, this guy doesn't like to use cell phones apparently, but big up man like Haji Uli for creating this fine specimen of an Anthurium, which is created by crossing the crystallinum Anthurium with the luxurians Anthurium, which is the parentage of the Anthurium King of Spades. Now, originally the Anthurium, this particular Anthurium, is native to the Caribbean, Central and South America, namely Colombia, sort of Ecuador regions of the Amazon. But for me, I thought it was very noble looking, had this sort of majestic aura to it. And the veins are really, really prominently sort of displayed. And there's a sort of a slight tint of like bronze to them, like bronzy pink, coppery tone. And apparently under the right light, the sinus and the rib, I think they call it the, what was it? I'll put a quick diagram, zoom in of this. So you've got the sinus, and I'm sure it's called the rib line, which I think is the line that goes down the middle of the plant, and the sinus is like that top sort of central part of where the veins protrude from. So yeah, that for me is a wicked anthurium. It's lethal. It's a lethal anthurium. I just like the big sort of round, it's like rounded heart shape. And it's also got that velvet look that I like, because I like the mycans, the melanochrysum, I like the frydec, which I don't have because I don't like to keep alocasias here because of past experiences with them. They just did not do well here. So yeah, although I would like to own a frydec, I don't have one, but I do like the look, that velvet look. And yeah, I think it will be one to have in the collection that does not look difficult, because apparently this particular anthurium likes dry conditions. I don't know if that's true, so if anyone has a king of spades, can you let me know if you keep it in dry conditions and it thrives? That apparently to stabilize a hybrid of anthurium, so the whole process from selecting the parents down to the cross-pollination to the cultivation of the seeds takes around 2 years. So it's not really easy to create one of these. And yeah, this is definitely one I want to add on the list. Apparently it doesn't grow that high. The maximum height is 12 inches. So you're not going to be getting a big, huge, massive, tall anthuriums, because I know some anthuriums like the veitchii and the warraquenum, you can get some crazy size leaves. But in terms of pricing, this particular anthurium, and I have seen it on a couple of UK sites, one of them, a well-known one, which is Grow Tropicals, had it for £130, which is out of stock. So it does tell me this is maybe sought after. I haven't really seen it anywhere else, but the lowest I did see it was £130. Again, it was out of stock. So it's not really easy to get hold of this particular anthurium. I'd say it is on the sort of pricey side, in the medium sort of side of budget. But next year I'll be willing to invest that much in what I would say an exquisite looking anthurium, which I have seen in many people's collections. I know a lot of people have been acquiring this in the last month newly. So even though this plant has probably been available on the market for maybe the last, I think, 4 to 5 years, because I think it may have came on the market around 2018. I may be wrong, I will double check that. But yes, number 4, the anthurium king of spades. Let me know if you have it. Okay, next we have number 5. Philodendron scandens micans variegated, also known as the Philodendron scandens aurea, I believe, which I've seen it listed as on Etsy. Now, the Philodendron scandens is native to Central America and the Caribbean, I've read, and grows up to 20 feet, I believe, in the wild, with leaf sizes of up to 30 centimeters long. And again, I refer to what I said earlier about achieving these maximum leaf sizes will probably be needed to be assisted with support, either from a moss pole or a plank or something that the aerial roots can attach to. You know, if you want to get the best out of your plant and you want it to thrive and feel like it is in its natural habitat, then we have to do as much as we can to emulate the plant's natural environment. So the philodendron scandens variegated, as I said, for me, is a plant on the wish list, and one of the reasons was because I already have a mycans, and before I had the mycans anyway, I was really drawn to this particular species of philodendron because I also have the generic philodendron scandens, which is just known as the heartleaf philodendron, on the market, and I fell in love with it straight away because it's a fast grower. It seems to be as easy as the other philodendrons that I have in my collection. I haven't had any problems with pests again. I've seen a few fungus gnats fly around it, but they haven't come from that plant. It's been other plants in my collection that I believe the fungus gnats have manifested from. And I've never seen anything crawling on it in terms of mealybug or spider mite. There's never been any webbing on any of my philodendrons. If I'm honest, I've never had spider mites, I've never had mealybug, so if I did experience anything like that, then it would be the first. So I'm not really accustomed to those kind of pests. It is definitely a plant that I have grown to really, really enjoy. I would advise it for anybody who's a beginner collector to add them to your collection. And in terms of lighting, I always have them sort of low light areas that do receive the filtered light. The growth rate is insane. This one I have up here, which is just the philodendron scandens, is pretty much pushed out. I can't even count how many new shoots during this winter season, and it's continual. It's not like it's just gonna be a, you know, continuous steady grower as long as you've got it in the right condition. And I believe the conditions I have, which is the low to medium light, consistent watering, let it go dry, not completely dry. Yeah, really easy plant. And I think, yeah, that's why when I saw the variegated one, I thought, you know what, I definitely need to add that to the collection because it reminded me a little bit of the philodendron scandens Brazil, sort of / Rio, with a little bit of the cream splash element sort of in there. I did read also they are toxic to pets, so if any of you do have the philodendron scandens, it's the same with other philodendrons, but I did read that this one can cause an irritation and swollen mouth, lips, tongue. In terms of pricing, I did see it for £38 on Etsy for a 1 leaf cutting, I think. Yeah, no, I saw it for £38 on Etsy, whole, I believe. I'll put a picture of the rough ads that I saw, or one of them. And then I saw a half moon variant, which I don't know if it's that different, but I'll put up a picture of what I saw labeled as the half moon variant of this philodendron scandens mycans variegated, or Heteracum aurea, or scandens mycans aurea, whatever you want to refer it to it as. I saw it for a 1 leaf cutting of the half moon variant for £24.99. So it's not very expensive, it's not cheap. I'd say it's on the sort of average side of things. Number 6 is the variegated philodendron melanochrysum, which is obviously not a very, very rare plant now. It probably was when it was first introduced via cultivation in the late 1800s, I think precisely 1886. Very interesting plant, and if you don't know what melanochrysum means and have often wondered, the name melanochrysum, or word, actually means black gold. So the plant is referred to as black gold, which is endemic to the damp hills of a place called Andia, I believe, which is in Colombia, 500 meters above sea level. So with the Melanochrysum variegated, it's obviously a cultivar, I believe, of the standard Melanochrysum, which is easily available. You've only got to type it in on the internet and it's probably available on 60% of the plant shops that sell aroids. Looking now, it is out of stock, to be honest, on a couple of them. So even though it is quite a common it's a sort of rarish plant on the common side, it is obviously sought after, and I imagine people who are collecting velvet-like plants will go for this. So anyone who probably has a mycans would probably be drawn to this, and I think that's why I really like the Melanochrysum. And it does remind me of like an Anthurium, let's say Clarinervium, in terms of the texture, because it has got that sort of woven fabric look to it, which I really like. And that kind of has rooted from the mycans, which I purchased around 2 months ago now. My mycans isn't doing too great. I don't know if I've shown this already, but it was bigger than this when I bought it, in the wrong soil, and I had to repot it, and it's only just now showing some new shoots. So I had to chop this back quite a bit, and I put it into my own soil mix. I don't know if you can see there, but it was this particular plant here that has sort of accentuated my interest in the velvet-like plant. So the Melanochrysum itself was one that I wanted, but knowing there was a variegated one, I thought, do you know what, go for the variegated one. So with the Melanochrysum in general, because obviously whatever goes on with the standard one is going to be applied to the variegated Melanochrysum. So the maximum height is apparently 5 feet, which is quite tall. So just a little bit shorter than me, because I'm not very tall. I think I'm around 5'8", 5'7". So yeah, a little bit shorter than me. And maximum leaf length, it is saying online around 25 centimeters, although this is sort of probably based on an indoor environment. So I imagine you do need a bit of space for this plant, and I think I can manage having another big-ish plant. Obviously 5 feet is quite tall, but it's not the tallest. So for me it's manageable, and another reason why I would go for this is because it is a philodendron and I know them well. Because to be honest, me personally, I think I've come to a consensus with myself that I'm now only going to really purchase plants that I know work in this environment. No matter how much I see and love and have lust and impulse to buy some rare plants that I have access to or can buy and afford to buy, I don't, because I'm scared that the environment is not, suited for it. For example, I don't have Anthuriums, I have one, and I bought that one Anthurium as a tester to see how well Anthuriums do in my environment, because obviously my humidity is going to be different to yours, to Joe's, to Sarah's, etc, etc. So let's have a look at my Anthurium quickly. Yeah, so sorry to change the subject, but just to sort of give you an understanding as to why these plants are all on this list, because a lot of people will start watching this video and think, oh, those are boring, seen that already, seen that 100 times. But as I said, this video is not about selecting plants that are the in plants or the trending plants or the most rare. I'm selecting plants that I know would more than likely work here and give me the less stress, you know, minimal hassle. Because obviously even with common plants, there is going to be some hassle sometimes, because a common plant can get a really difficult pest to eradicate, for an example. But anyway, as I was saying, on this anthurium, which I think is producing a new shoot, which I've only just noticed. So I got this anthurium to see what anthuriums do like here, and already on this silver blush, I don't know if this was blotching and spots that were forming from previously where I purchased it from, and now it's grown slightly, they've become bigger, or if they've just appeared from being here. But I do see no signs of these spots on any of the other leaves. So I'm monitoring this at the moment, and if this does well, you know, up until spring, as I say, there was a new shoot coming as well. Don't mind my ADHD. So this plant must be happy, I gather, because there's no bruising on those leaves. But anyway, I'll play it by ear. As I say, by spring, sort of mid-spring, if this is thriving, then I will buy more anthuriums. But for now, I'm piloting them. So the melanochrysum I think will do all right, because so far the mycans is doing okay, and with the repot and the chop, it looks like it's revived and it's growing new shoots. So yeah, I think the melanochrysum variegated should do well here. It's quite a unusual looking plant. It's unusual looking anyway, you know, with that droopy sort of relaxed look, just like sort of, hi, I'm here in the forest, just catching some sun rays. This is my 4th video, I think, so I'm not used to this, so bear with me. So as I was saying, yeah, this will be an interesting plant for me to have. But the only thing is, it is on a little bit of the pricey side, the variegated one. So I've seen it for £75 online in a 26 centimetre pot. £75. £75 for a plant. I'm not saying it's out of my budget or out of my league, but still, I guarantee you in about, let's say, 5 to 6 months next year, that plant will be around £30, I reckon. But saying that, I saw it on Etsy for £134. One leaf cutting on eBay for £35. So it's not cheap, it's not super expensive. So I'm not saying it's exorbitant or it's, you know, silly expensive. But yeah, it's not a plant that your everyday person would go out and just, you know, spend that kind of money on. Bearing in mind the standard version is £40 around, maybe £30 cheapest you'll find. However, I did see it in my local, or one of my local plant shops for £10, which I did nearly buy, but I didn't, because I had my eyes on the variegated version, which I've seen on a price list, which I have access to, or where I have access to a lot of variegated plants from the genuses Philodendron, Monstera, Hoya, Syngonium, and Anthurium. So saying that, I could probably get it at a more affordable rate, but it would mean going down the international import route. And as you know, at this time of the year, even in the UK, it is a sort of hit and miss situation ordering plants via mail here. So from abroad is even a bigger risk, which I'm not really willing to take at the moment, because I have a lot of other finances to attend to at the moment, which are more necessity based, I'd say, and things that we need in life to live life. But saying that, I'm gonna do digging, and yeah, 2025, this plant should be in my collection. Now, the only other thing I did want to say is the worries about this plant. So being a velvet-like texture plant, as you know, with the velvety type leaved plants, there is a susceptibility to pests, namely spider mites with the melanochrysum, or others like mealybug, I'm imagining, or if there are any other types of pests that anybody else has experienced, please do let me know down in the comments box. But other than that, there are no other pests that I've seen linked to this particular species of philodendron. But if I do get it, I can assure you that I would be giving it a regular once over or bath in a sort of neem oil solution, which I do use regularly now, in conjunction with nematodes, because which I think I have actually now managed to control a small, slightly intimidating population of fungus gnats. And if anyone else is battling with them, please do look into the nematodes route. I do think they have worked. They did say on the packaging or the instructions that came with it that it is advisable to keep the soil or your medium or substrate moist for around 10 days post application of the nematodes, which I did. I tried my best. It was a bit worrying, and maybe that's why possibly, if those spots on that anthurium are from my doings, I possibly overwatered it, which would have been due to the application of the nematodes, because I wanted to do everything together. And I think at that time, the anthurium was probably watered around 5 to 6 days prior to the application of the nematodes. So if it is me that has caused the brown spots, then it is possibly overwatering. I probably sort of left that out earlier when I showed it, because I didn't want to sort of admit my potential wrong. But yes, the nematodes definitely, I think, are working. I've got one plant in pond, which is a Monstera that I bought 2 years ago. And obviously with the pond, you won't get this problem because the fungus gnats can't lay their eggs on the pond medium because of the rocky nature that they are. And one other thing that did worry me slightly is when I did do a search on Google Images for the variegated melanochrysum, and I still have it up here, I don't see any pictures of anybody showing a mature, tall, variegated melanochrysum, unless it hasn't been available for that long, because I don't know when the variegated one appeared on the market or became available on the market. So that could be a reason. Actually, what's this one? Let's have a look. I've just found one on the moss pole here. See, again, this one's really small. I'll see if I can quickly put up a picture of this one that I've just seen. But it looks really nice. And I think that will go really nice with the variegated mycans nearby, which is also on this list. I didn't put those two on the list together actually intentionally, thinking that they're two velvet tea plants that are similar and they're both variegated, but come to think of it now, it's just popped up into my head that those two together would actually marry nicely. Maybe this doesn't get too tall. Maybe it's like the Borsigiana species, and it doesn't grow very large. And if you don't know what Borsigiana means, I did research it. It does basically mean a smaller variety, and it has wider spacing in between the internodes, whereas on the standard Monstera deliciosa or any other variegated Monstera, the internodes are fairly close together. So yeah, that's the variegated Melanochrysum. So yeah, that's my only worry. I haven't seen any mature pictures, and so I'm not sure if many people have successfully grown this plant to a mature stage. If you have, I'd love to know, and send me a link to a picture on your social media, maybe if you do have one, and I'd love to see it. That will hopefully give me a bit more or some assurance that it would be a correct decision, because like I say guys, I don't want to be just purchasing any plant for any reason just because I like the look of it. I want the plant to pretty much, well, I want to have a rough idea that the plant is going to kind of survive here at Hotel Lethal, the Lethal Hotel. So yeah, I think that there's not really much more I can say about that one. That was number 6, so we do have 2 left. Okay, so the next one is number 7 on the list, which is something a little bit different, which I don't really hear anybody talking about. Now, the Amydrium silva is native to Southern Asia, and it is a cousin of the Monstera genus, according to online sources. Now, I really like the look of this. Again, it's one that I see in backgrounds of some collectors' videos, or I have seen in some collectors' videos in the past when I first started my plant tube journey, namely Only Plants, which is run or presented by Sean. Really like Sean's style of vlogging, so if anybody hasn't followed or subscribed to Sean's channel, Only Plants, I suggest you do so. He's very knowledgeable, and the style of videos are very, very, very well done and have some sort of very smooth, minimal but stylish editing without being too crazy. Because I know there are some plant channels out there, they go a little bit over the top with all the editing and stuff, and you know, it's just plants. We're not trying to make Hollywood movies here now, are we, exactly, about plants? So being native to Southern Asia, specifically it's from the rainforest of Borneo, the Amydrium silva. So it's not a hybrid, and if I'm honest, I do prefer native plants to hybrids and sort of cultivars, etc., because of, I find them a bit more stable in my experience personally, and they normally don't give you too much stress. And this is to date. I'm not saying in the future there won't be any native plants that I acquire that give me trouble, but for now, yeah, the native sort of philodendron-y, Monstera, Syngonium type plants, they do well here. So being from the rainforest of Borneo, it does have that real exotic tropical look that I really like. And the shape of the leaves, I thought, had a sort of intergalactic vibe to them. Almost look like, this might sound weird, but I don't know, they just look like little crafts hovering at high speed to me. Don't know if that's the right way to describe them. But yeah, saying that they do kind of look like a Monstera Peru when they're really small, and then the fenestration starts to sort of develop as the plant matures, and you get this sort of mitten sort of shape. But like I say, from aerial view, to me it looks like some sort of unidentified flying object. I don't even like using those kind of words. I don't even, am I allowed to say that? I might get a strike or something. So yeah, a Midrium silver. It also has this sort of crocodile reptile skin, leathery, tough look to it. So I'm imagining these leaves look like they can retain a lot of water. So I'm imagining you probably need to let this go really dry, or not completely dry. Being a cousin of the Monstera, I also imagine that would suggest that it has similar watering requirements, because the rainforest of Borneo, I've seen videos, it does rain, but I imagine it dries very quickly, and that would be due to the conditions, which is different to our indoor conditions. And this is why maybe a lot of us end up killing some plants with root rot by overwatering them. And what you've got to think of is, in the wild and the rainforest, when it does rain, there'll be the wind, there'll be the rays of the sun, and they'll probably come quite quickly, and the forest floor probably dries quickly, but it probably stays a little bit damp, so there is a little bit of water there. But what you've got to think is also take into account these plants are acclimatized to that environment, and the ones we buy, a lot of them have been acclimatized to our environments indoors. So there obviously will be a different way that the roots behave in comparison to the wild, but generally I think overall it's going to be a similar thing. They do not sit in water, and I think this is such a basic principle to understand with like monsteras, philodendrons, most plants. I know there are some plants where you need to keep the soil completely wet at all times consistently. One that comes to the top of my head is the Aphelandra squarosa, I think it's called, also known as the zebra plant. I didn't do well with that because that requires constant moisture, and I think I gave it too much moisture. Yeah, I imagine the care for this will be similar to the care that I'm giving to pretty much 90% of my plants. I do have 3 or 4 calatheas, which kind of I don't let dry out as much as everything else that needs to dry out. But yeah, looking at it, it's obviously epiphytic because I do see aerial roots on it. It's obviously a climber. I do love a climbing plant. And when it gets big, it looks quite nice. I didn't find what the maximum height is, but apparently the leaves reach a maximum of 8 to 10 inches in length, which is quite big. Not as big as a Monstera leaf, but so yeah, if I just quickly look at the care for it, let's have a look. I'm just gonna pick a random site here, display. Midrium plants known for their captivating foliage and unique growth habits have gained popularity among indoor gardeners. So bright in direct light, just like the others. Well draining potting mix, which I did imagine, and they're advising a mixture of peat perlite and orchid bark. That's quite close to my own DIY mix that I make, which the composition is coconut shell crushed, coconut husk, which is the outer hair, I believe, and I also add pon. So I think pon is lava, pumice, and geolite, if I remember rightly. And what else do I add? I think that's it. And that seems to work with Oh, and obviously the compost, which is a sort of medium priced compost with a little bit of wood in it already, so that adds some extra drainage, which I do believe is peat free, and that seems to work. So I would put my Omidrium straight into that mix. Obviously it says here they're natural climbers, so use support like a moss pile or a trellis. I would obviously go down the wooden plank route personally. Temperature, we don't need to go into that, it's pretty standard. It says consistently moist but not waterlogged. So when it feels dry to the touch, so that's pretty much the same advice as a Monstera, which I did think it would be. And with the feeding, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's saying here, keep an eye out for common pests like spider mites or mealybugs. So I will have to keep a close eye on the leaves. I do keep a close eye on everything anyway, pretty much standard practice. So yeah, there's not really much more information on the Omidrium. I'm not sure if there are variegated versions available. If I can remember, actually, I think I might have a list somewhere where there was some. I'm sure there was a mint variant somebody was trying to sell. I'll double check. I also did see, which was noted somewhere, that it ships very well, which is always a bonus and a USP for me in buying a plant. And also I've seen it for pricing £60. Did I really see it for £60? It must have been quite big. Or sell 40. That can't be right. Is that? Let's have a look quickly. Have I priced it incorrectly? Sorry, I will reiterate, actually. I think that pricing that I noted must have been for something else. I do believe it comes in at around the 20 to £25 mark in a 12 centimetre pot. And that's on your sort of average site. I did see that on House of Kojo, so I'm imagining you probably ain't gonna pay more than 28 for this. Let's just look at another one. And this obviously isn't anything rare, anything special, but there's something about it I like. And when I found out that it was a cousin to the Monstera, straight away I thought of environment. So I know Monsteras thrive here. Monstera will probably thrive in anyone's house, within reason, obviously subject to the lighting and how often the person is watering them. And also, is it supported? And yeah, lighting, because a lot of people put Monsteras in direct sunlight and end up burning the leaves and not realizing that you can't just keep a Monstera in a window which is south facing. I see it a lot, and I just want to knock on the door and say, you're killing your you're killing your you are killing your Monstera. So yeah, overall I think it would work here. I don't know where I'd put it, but I'd have it going up a nice piece of untreated pine, or maybe a silver birch branch from the woods. When I go and harvest the spring water, I normally see detached branches. I'm trying to not go down the route of sawing branches off trees for my plants, because I don't moss around. If you haven't seen my other video on Monsteras and planks, you'll see that I don't moss around. I don't use moss poles. My plants are not pole dancers. They're epiphytes if they are climbing. So they need something wooden to climb on. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not telling you to put your plants on a wooden plank. But personally, for me, Mr. M at Lethal, I like to put the plants on planks. And these, I've only been put on planks recently, and I've never actually owned the moss pole. So I would only use bamboo sticks previously anyway. So yeah, the Omidrium Silver is one on the list. Do you have it? What are your thoughts on it? Is it a yesteryear plant? A has been? because I know some people are not really looking at common type plants anymore because of the market is so broad at the moment in terms of variegation and hybrids and, you know, special crossbreeded pollinated plants. So yeah, that'll bring us to number 8, the next one. Right, so that brings us to the last one in this wish list video. And the last one is one that many of you have. I've seen it countless times in videos, in the backgrounds of Instagram, photos, you name it, it's there, it's in vlogs. And that is the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, which you could say is now probably going to be, it's going to be like the next classic alongside Monstera, I believe, eventually. Hence seeing it in a, I think what you would call a plant shopping style vlog. And it was in the US. I can't remember the channel. I would give them a shout out if I could remember, but I can't. I watch so many different plant vlogs. But anyhow, she was in a store and she couldn't believe it herself actually. And she saw Rhaphidophora tetraspermas for like $3. Now here in the UK, you'll know the conversion is quite good at the moment. So you're looking at probably around £1.56, £1.60, maybe £1.80 at the most for a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, which I have seen in my local shop. One of them are selling them for around, I think, £18. And that's in a, I think, 10 or 12 centimetre pot. So I think generally online it's worth about £20. It's native to southern Thailand and Malaysia. Gets mistaken for a Monstera a lot, and initially when I did see it, and which probably made me gravitate towards this particular genus and species, was the fenestration. I did think it was a Monstera. I thought it was a type of Monstera, but it is very similar. I don't think they're related. I will double check. But the fenestration is very similar. But if you really look at it, once you get to know a Monstera, you will know that it is a different plant altogether, which I can definitely differentiate now. And there are other plants that I do see and I think, oh, is that a Monstera hybrid? And it's not. I can't think of which one I saw recently and I thought it was Monstera, but it wasn't. Maybe I'll do another video on lookalike plants at some point. But back to the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. So the leaves in the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma are referred to what's called, so it's called pinnation. The term is pinnation, which are leaves cut with deep opposite lobing. There is a picture up now so you can see. Have I got the Rhaphidophora? I haven't even got one up here. Let's get it up. Hold on, my keyboard. Where's my keyboard? Yeah, there we are. Don't want to knock over the candle holder. Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. So you can have a good look at this beauty. So I've just seen it saying price drop for £40. See, the price varies with this, to be honest. It looks like House of Gojo is selling it for £40.99. So yeah, when I saw this, it climbs up walls, you name it. So it looks like it's pretty versatile in how you train it to climb. As I say, I'm going to put it on a plank, but I'm seeing some lovely pictures here with one on a trellis. I'm seeing it going up a wall, on a moss pole. So the maximum height must be this must go forever. I did actually make a note. So up to 8 foot tall indoors, which is staggering. I don't know how long it takes to achieve that 8 foot indoors. I reckon with different conditions, I reckon you might be able to get more or maybe a bit below that, who knows. Now the leaf maximum length is 20 centimeters apparently, but I did see on Reddit that somebody had an 8 to 9 inch leaf. And I imagine that would have been due to the plant being supported, because as we know with the epiphytic plants, you're more than likely to enhance that leaf growth and achieve that big size that we all yearn for using ample support. I'm not saying moss poles won't help you get that big leaf, but I do have a good feeling if you have some good solid untreated wood on a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, you could probably achieve that 8 to 9 inch leaf size by the guy on Reddit. I'm going to see if I can find that picture so I can actually put it up. So yeah, that is the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. With the lighting with this plant, apparently some direct sun is tolerable, which I thought was interesting. And I think why I wanted this plant was, as I say originally, I thought it was a Monstera hybrid. I really like Monstera. I get on with it. It seems to thrive in this environment. Hence this one here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't want to drop it. It's going to be a bit awkward for me to get it into the camera because it is quite monstrous now, even though it is still juvenile. But yeah, it had that sort of smooth, glossy green, real sort of prehistoric, almost a little bit alien look to it. And I thought, okay, this looks like a fast growing plant, and I'm imagining it does have a fast growth rate, which I didn't check. So yeah, I thought, yeah, this will definitely help to accentuate this jungle vibe that I'm slowly achieving in this room here, which is my bedroom, if you haven't learnt that already. And there is a video of a tour of the current collection, which is no talking, so if you just want a nice relaxing video to have on in the background, I think there is some decent music in it, I can't remember. And I thought I'd go for the no talking option because a lot of plant tours have talking, and sometimes I know people just want to put on something to just have it in the background or watch to relax to. So I thought I'd do it a different way. I might do a more in-depth granular one further down the line when the collection builds up a bit more next year. But it's around 25 plants if you want to have a watch at that. So yeah, the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, is tolerable to some direct sun, which is handy, although I will say no plants in my collection do get direct sunlight really. Only anything in that corner, which would normally be a Monstera or my Philodendron Jungle Boogie, also known as the Philodendron Narrow Escape or Tiger Tooth, that has had bits of direct sunlight, but through this winter period where the sun is less intense, and most plants that can't handle direct sunlight would probably be able to handle a little bit of it. I'm not saying stick your plant in the direct sunlight during the winter because it could cause problems, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So I think I won't have any problems with providing that with the lighting, but apparently it's not a low light plant. So if you do not give it enough light, it will decrease the rate of growth and you will end up with smaller leaves. So that is one thing to consider if you don't have this plant already, or you do already own it and you are noticing slow growth and small leaves. It is sensitive to overwatering more than underwatering, but prefers not to be dry for too long apparently. So there is a little bit of a challenge there, I suppose, with watering. and it will tolerate household humidity, but it will love and appreciate the increased humidity if you are able to provide that, which is another grey area when it comes to using humidifiers and so forth. It does like a chunky, well draining mix, so again, my DIY mix will probably be suitable for it, which I probably would repot into, not straight away, but once it's sort of settled into my environment and I can see that it is happy. Saying that, there are times when I do get some plants and I do give them the immediate repot when I can see straight away that there is going to be a problem, maybe with some heightened water retention, which I don't want, especially if the plant doesn't like wet feet. Because there are some plants you can get away with it, but some plants you just can't. For an example, I'm gonna give you a good example. Like the calathea, if that stays too wet, that will start to sort of change colour very quickly, and you will see problems, even though it is a plant that likes to stay moist all the time. And like the Syngonium, if that stays soggy, I notice it does start to go funny, and leaves start to, you know, almost shrivel, and you start to see the almost early signs of the beginning of the roots wanting to rot. But 8 times out of 10, I leave them in the nursery medium or soil that they come in. And again, guys, as I said, this isn't really about what's trending, spending the most money that I can on plants. This was all about what would work here and what I think would do best for my lifestyle as well. Because like I said earlier, I don't want to be having to do a lot of maintenance. Hence why I think I started to use the planks, because obviously with moss poles, just like what Millennial Plant Dad was emphasizing on the other day, with moss poles you've got to keep them moist as well, and then you've got to extend them, and etc, etc. And with the plank, you don't really have to keep it moist, don't have to water it. Extending it will be easily, you just have to sort of attach another plank onto the plank, or if you want to extend the width, you just do the same. I do believe each plant are plants that I can manage and bring to the best level of health I can without or with minimal headache. If that sounds sensible. But let me know, is there anything on here that you want or that you're thinking about? Have I made you want a plant on this list? Who knows? And with these videos, these are just something I'm trying out. I'm not trying to do this for any monetary gain. Plants are truly a passion of mine from a very young age. I think it started from planting conifer trees in my front garden with my mother from the age of probably 6-7 years old, and I used to mow the lawn and sort of cut back thorny bushes and stuff. And you know, I was interested. I always remember being fascinated with a sort of giant fuchsia bush we had. I remember me and my brothers picking the fuchsia flowers off and, you know, thinking they were little bells. So yeah, this has been a lifelong thing for me, and I'm trying to share my journey and any tips that I pick up along the way, and you know, create as much interesting content as possible. So with that, I just wanted to say, if you enjoyed this video and if you've watched any of my other videos, I do appreciate it. Every view really helps, and if you could hit the like and subscribe, hit the bell button, which I don't like saying, it sounds like you're almost begging, but it is the reality of building a YouTube channel from the start. You know, any help or any subscriber that comes along is greatly appreciated, and I know there's been 3 new subscribers in the last 2 weeks, and it's only 3 people, but it's 3 new people that have decided they like this content that I'm making. So if you're liking it as well, please do the same, because I know a lot of us do forget. We're on autopilot just watching videos, and I will try and make it I will try and make the videos as interesting and enticing as possible, but I need you guys' help. So the more people sort of like the video and subscribe to the channel, the more it's going to give me the confidence to know that the content I am making is worthy and people do want to watch it. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. There is one planned. I'm going to try and make it different, but keep it in line with what people want to watch. So I'll see you on the next one. My name's Em, this is Lethal. Bye for now.